Okay, let's go ahead and open up then. John Weddleton, Community and Economic Development Committee, January 24th. Roll call.
Mr. Weddleton?
Here.
Mr. Trainee?
Here.
Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. Comstock?
Here.
Mr. Dunbar? Chair, you have a quorum.
Who's on the committee?
Forrest was added, so it's the 5 of you guys.
So Chris is your
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm just gonna go around the table in the room a bit, and Pete's here. So John Weddleton, Pete,
Dean Gates in the council.
Ryan Yelplane.
Mandy Honest, Clerk's Office.
Paul Dunham, Green Sleeve Genetics.
Seth Nolan, Attorney General Company. John Redden, Great Northern Canvas. Gordon Huss, Great Northern Canvas. Jeffrey Hickman, Health Department.
Leo Bill, Fire Marshal.
Adam Walter, take the office.
Dave Whitfield, Planning.
Archim Summer, AWO. Tertiary OEC.
Good, thanks. So as we go through these different marijuana licenses, you can go ahead and sit up here if it's your issue. And if you haven't been to these meetings, what we'll do is several members will chat a bit about, we'll get a report, we'll chat. And then, but if you want to talk, just raise your hand and then I'll point to you and you get to talk. So we want everybody to have an opportunity to say something, but we don't like to have the side conversations, doesn't work. And go pretty quick. Okay, so first one up is Green Sleeve. So you guys want to go ahead and take these seats. No. Okay, Amanda, you're up.
Green Sleeves is the license review for the cultivation. All of the licensing restrictions were addressed in their operating plan. There were no taxes, fees, or fines found due by any of the licensees or affiliates. All of the safety and security requirements were addressed in their operating plan as well, and no extra conditions are recommended on the license.
Great, thank you. Forrest Dunbar has arrived. Welcome. And this is Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Green Sleeve Genetics is applying for a special use permit for marijuana cultivation to total approximately 3,200 square feet of space within an existing industrial use building. The proposed facilities within the I-2 district, generally located southwest of the intersection of North Post Road and Sitka Street. And planned hours of operation are Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the closest protected land use is a playground from which is located within Richardson Vista Park, which is in Government Hill, so it's across the railroad tracks. You can't actually even walk there, it's just straight lines. Located approximately 1,700 feet away, and the site has obtained non-conforming rights for building encroachments present on the property, lack of visual enhancement landscaping, as well as pedestrian amenities. The use is consistent with the Anchorage 2040 land use plan, and providing site plans do not show any major alterations to the building facade or structure that would make it of dissimilar character, scale, or size when compared to surrounding structures. The planning department recommends approval of special land use permit subject to the conditions as stated in the staff report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thanks. Any comments from somebody?
Just a question actually of issues. You were at the community council this month, right?
What was that?
You were at the community council in Government Hill? Have you been there?
Yes, we have.
I just remember you being there. What was the response?
Real open, welcoming. They made a joke and then continued on with the meeting.
Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't hear any complaints, so. What was the joke?
Hot road or something like that.
Yeah, it's true.
There you go.
Could happen. Thank you. Okay, the one that jumped out is this is I-2, and your narrative you talked about is I-1.
I believe that is just a typo. I noticed that as well when I was going through it. It got changed in the diagram, I believe, to 9-1 from our architect.
So so I-1 you could have retail. Is I-2 there's no retail allowed, just broadly in I-2?
You can have retail in I-2 as long as it's paired with a cultivation attached and co-located with a cultivation or manufacturing facility.
Could you have retail in I-2, just not connected with marijuana? Could you have I-2 land?
Cannot have standalone marijuana retail in the
But
United States.
not even talking marijuana, I'm just curious about I-2 in general. I thought you couldn't have retail in I-2.
You could have
We have
various-
retail.
You couldn't have
Selling
a
burgers.
burger off in I-2.
Sure.
You have people selling tabletop selling down there retail.
Yeah.
You can drive in and purchase.
It's more
So the new code
industrial
is
than
more
retail.
restrictive about retail in I-2, I thought.
Yeah.
I have an I-1 building, so I'm okay. Okay, I was just curious about that, just to make sure there wasn't some implication if you wanted to expand into something.
Not much traffic down there, not appealing.
Yeah, no, that one in,
Clear down.
yeah, that one in Mountain, part of Mountain View that you've been thinking, saying traffic actually does really well.
But this is even way further away. This is in the hardcore industrial section.
Just saying, people seem to,
Yeah, but that's why all the hotels and all the,
Yeah.
there are people there,
Yeah.
there aren't people there. This is really strict industrial section.
Francis has his book, I'm sure we can get some details here.
Retail sales use category, every use type under the retail sales category is permitted in the I-1, every type.
I-1, what about I-2? Because this is I-2.
General retail is prohibited, pawn shop, furniture, appliance store, some others are permitted. There's the auction house is permitted, building material stores, conditional use, so it's a mix. Most of them are allowed as permitted or conditional use, but there are a couple that are prohibited, like the general retail is prohibited in the I-2. In the I-2.
Okay, thanks. I thought there was something in there. So any recommendations?
Yeah, I would support this.
A second, any opposition? Dick, anything to say? Goes pretty quick. Have you guys been here before?
No.
See how easy we make your life? So this doesn't mean, what this means is when we go to the assembly on Tuesday, this will come up. And it generally goes pretty briefly. It'd be good if you were there. Because we have public hearing, so you can speak if you choose to. But we're just a committee, so I will say, okay, we discussed it at the meeting and recommended approval. But that's just us recommending, and the vote will happen. We can't really say how it goes.
And we tend now to schedule these at the end of the meeting because we have a youth member that can't participate in these debates. And so, just know it's not gonna happen at 6.
But feel free to enjoy the entire meeting.
Yeah, come along. It's interesting, but your item will be towards the end of the stack.
Sometimes education.
And we may move it if there are contentious issues, but probably.
All right, so moving on, Turnigan Herb Company.
Thank you.
All right, Mandy?
So this is retail for Turnigan Herb Company, and this is a separate application from a previous one you all have seen in the past. So different location. All license restrictions were addressed in their operating plan. There were no taxes, fees, or fines found due. All of the safety and security requirements were addressed. There was no mention of concentrates, but just know if you do have them, secure refrigeration, and no extra conditions are recommended for the license.
Okay, thank you. And this is, you said Colin on today.
It's Colin's case, but he's currently picking fights with soccer hooligans in London, so I'll be presenting on his behalf. Turnigan Herb Company is applying for a special land use permit for a marijuana retail facility to total approximately 2,500 square feet of space. It's going to be a brand new commercial building that's currently under construction. The proposed facility is within a GC6 district, generally located north of the intersection of the Alyeska Highway and Northbrook Road. Planned business hours are 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday. The closest protected land use is a playground, which is located within Girdwood Park, right off the Alyeska Highway near the library and the fire station. And that's located approximately 1,950 feet away as measured via Shore's practical pedestrian route. And the use is consistent with the Girdwood area plan, and the provided site plans do not show any major alterations or crazy building plans that would make it a dissimilar character, scale, or size when compared to surrounding structures. And the planning department recommends approval of special use permit subject to the conditions as stated in the staff report.
Thanks. Any comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a second location in Girdwood? Is that, did I hear that right? Or this is
This is our first location.
the first location?
This was the one where they had applied previously for a location in Anchorage, and there was concerns for neighbors in the location of it being in a cul-de-sac. Was that kind of?
No, it's near the residential area, so rather than make waves, we decided just to shell it.
Okay.
You went far afield.
All right, I know I'd seen you guys around here before, so, thank you.
They did get a cultivation license in that location.
Correct.
Oh, okay, all right.
And so this is the old Maxine's building?
Next to it, Maxine's, so our property is actually the first commercial property on Crow Creek Road, so it goes our property, then Maxine's, then Muskie. That makes sense.
I think that Girdwood has been underserved, and so, glad that you're planning to get out there.
That's unusual.
It is surprising.
You know, I mean, it looks fine. I mean, you went to the land use committee there in G-Bombs, right?
Correct.
And it was odd in this packet is there was, you have the, I don't know if you put it in, someone, like imagine the staff or someone, but there's minutes from the land use committee for January 11 of 16.
Correct. That's when we started this project.
But I didn't see anything in those minutes that mentioned it at all. And then there was GBOS minutes from October 15, 18.
Right.
And I read those and it almost seemed like I was at that meeting, but they do tend to all blur together.
I believe you were at that meeting.
Okay. But I didn't see a mention of it in the minutes either, which is odd. But then you have from, there is the memorandum of understanding dated 10/15/18 and signed, and also one from May 16th.
Correct.
May 16 and 16. So those are all done, but in the minutes, there was nothing referring to your, unless I missed it.
I could have sworn
several
it was.
times.
Well, I think that's a conversation with GBOs.
They did pretty good. I just thought very odd, so, I did, or did we get the wrong minutes in there?
It was definitely recorded.
Mr. Chair, the 10, 15, 18 minutes do
What page is
show. First, I have a number package here, but
I didn't write down here. Page 19. Well, there we go, it's the first thing, agreement basis. Okay. No, that's the memorandum of understanding, I was looking at the minutes. Do you see that in the minutes somewhere?
there is a memorandum of understanding. There's also meeting minutes from 10/19.
That's where I didn't see it mentioned.
So it's page 12 in the packet, and that's the number one presentation.
Was the first thing, okay, so I was reading it too fast, sorry. Okay, and there were no public comments from anyone?
We did have public comments. There was the closest residential neighbors to us, to our south actually. They voiced concern about pretty much any business going in there, much less a marijuana business. So we met with them a few times, and we actually, their concern was based on the fact that there's no buffer zone, quote unquote, in between residential and commercial to protect against anything. So I explained to them that, you know, with the way that that piece of property was zoned, somebody, and the size of it, somebody could come in and put a 60-unit rental facility in there, or a bar, you know, and have people up till 3 o'clock in the morning, that kind of thing. So conversations continued, and we came to an agreement where we would tie up the south and southwest corners of the property into a development easement or into some sort of easement to prohibit, and that would run with the land. So it would prohibit any further development on that property, and they were good with that.
Very accommodating. We didn't have any comments in the packet? Is that, they just came and talked to you?
That was a side conversation.
It wasn't, so nothing got nailed in?
Not formally. I've got an agreement signed with them.
And we did have one comment from a Stephen Delatouche.
That's him.
Is that in our packet? Can you read it?
Should be under being agency and public comments.
I didn't see it. You got the smaller version. Oh, you got the forward. Well,
I don't see it.
Okay.
I mean, this is a by right use, right?
Pardon?
This is a by right use. They're asking for appropriate.
But you have to get a special land use permit.
No, in those conversations, we're part of the dialogue with GBOS as well as land use committee, because we ended up having, uncharacteristically, instead of just one community council meeting, we had 6 essentially, that spanned 3 months. Because we met with the land use committee, then the GBOS 1 month, did it again, and then it again. So we were vetted quite extensively.
Yeah,
Well,
sure.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, my apologies. It looks like that comment from Steve Delatouche did not make it into the staff packet, but what we can do is we'll include it in AIM.
Can you read it real quick? Sure. Is it short?
To the members of the Anchorage Assembly considering this case, my name is Stephen Delatouche. I'm the adjoining property owner, lot 42B, bordering the south boundary to the proposed commercial permit. This is also the division line between single-family residential and commercial residential zoning. My permanent home is located on lot 41C as 205 Crow Creek Road. I previously attended the Girdwood Board of Supervisors meetings in 2016 regarding this case and have made comments along with my immediate neighbors in regards to this development. Also, I submitted a letter of concerns on April 11, 2016. As part of gaining my acceptance of the proposed development, Mr. Mullen agreed by written covenant to restrict any use of the southern portion of his property, which is Class B wetland. This development easement acts as a buffer between our properties. As he stated in the attached covenant agreement letter, upon closing on purchase of the property, he would establish the easement and present it for the record. To my knowledge, he has not provided that to myself or anyone as of this date. I'd like the Assembly to question Mr. Mullen about this covenant prior to the possible permit approval and submit the easement for the record. It looks like he did submit a copy of the agreement. So I can include that as an.
Okay, that'd be great. Good. So what's the process to do that then? To do that easement?
My attorney's looking at it right now, and the agreement was before we began operations. And that's actually in the works, because it's a new construction building, so we'll have it complete by then.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you got an acre and a half lot there, and so you should have plenty of room to put your 2,500 square
Most
foot
definitely.
building. And you're gonna put some landscaping to create a buffer between his property?
Well, there's a lot of natural vegetation. In fact, we're using the old parking pad for Maxine's.
Oh,
So that's our primary, we don't have to do much of anything except punch a new driveway, just because, anyways, we have to punch a new driveway. So our building, actually, our footprint for our building takes up less than 4% of the property.
oh,
So it's very minor.
So I have a question. Then the property to the south is then the Maxine's building?
No, to the north is Maxine's. And our
I see.
Our building actually sits pretty much right on the lot line. We've got a shared driveway agreement also with John Persons, owner of, or Bob Persons, owner
You get this
of
already
Maxine.
in there, as you head back
Yeah, the map is confusing.
And that is an interesting note. We were working with both neighbors, residential and commercial. We've got a shared driveway agreement with Bob Persons that owns that piece of property to the north of us. He's losing, the DOT told him he's gonna lose his driveway, and we offered to come in and put a shared driveway right down the lot line. And that would give him more access to his property as well as us, and getting us further away from, incrementally, from the residents to the south.
And why is he losing his driveway?
Because it's not Dakota. The slope and the whole thing.
The DOT's telling him
Crow Creek Road is one of those weird shared roads.
that. It is, but that's a driveway.
I'm guessing they have a right of way.
They can do that.
I'm guessing they have a right of way.
Okay.
So, okay, and then what are the nature of these two weird lots down below?
I have no idea. I believe they're residential. The little
So-
pies, that they look like pie slices?
Yeah, but so he isn't actually the closest neighbor to the south, he's the closest developed neighbor to the south. Sounds pretty extortive, but, interesting, thank you.
Anything else? Would you recommend?
Definitely move to support.
second.
Dick, anything to add?
See on the line?
Nothing to add.
Great, thank you. Any opposition? Okay, so you've seen, so at the meeting, we'll go ahead, and when we bring this up, we'll say that this committee recommended approval. See where it goes. Thank you. Okay, next one is Great Northern Manufacturing. Can someday you bring all the owners and we'll have a big grand party?
We need a bigger room.
We need a bigger
Next time.
Okay, Mandy?
Okay, so this is Great Northern Manufacturing. All license restrictions they addressed in their operating plan. There were no taxes, fees, or fines found due. They addressed all of the safety and security requirements in the operating plan as well. And there were no additional conditions recommended for the license.
All right, thank you. And this is Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Great Northern Cannabis is applying for a specialized permit for marijuana manufacturing to a total of approximately 3,255 square feet of space within an existing 18,483 square foot industrial use building. The proposed facility is within an I-1 district generally located southeast of the intersection of Hardwick Boulevard and West 70th Avenue. Planned hours of operation are Monday through Sunday, 24 hours a day. The closest protected land use is an athletic field located within Poplar Grove Park. That's approximately 1,540 feet away, as measured in accordance with the criteria of Anchorage Municipal Code. The site is obtained aquaculture rights for building encroachments present on property and the lack of visual enhancement landscaping. The underlying plat contains a note which restricts access to West 70th Avenue only, and this note is addressed through conditions 6 and 7 in the staff report. This use is consistent with the Anchorage 2040 land use plan, and the provided site plans do not show any major alterations to the building facade or structures that make it of dissimilar character, scale, or size when compared to surrounding structures. And the planning department recommends approval of special land use permit subject to the conditions as stated in the staff report.
All right, thank you. Any comments? Is there cultivation in here now?
No.
But that's a plan then?
It's a plan.
Okay.
So second cultivation location?
Is this an issue with that? No direct access to art?
No, I don't believe so. There's plenty of access on 70.
And even when you do cultivation, you'll be okay?
It's not high traffic.
And I think that we are currently working with traffic right now to possibly allow access to Arctic, but that's not completely worked out, that's my understanding.
But you're fine without it?
Yes, it can go forward without it. I think we would, well, the property owner would prefer to have it for property value. We can work with it either way.
It's a popular area. Several licensees that are ready.
Well, it's kind of light industrial.
Right.
Pocket there.
Yep.
It's a marijuana district.
Did you have any comments, one on one public?
Only from the owner of the Arctic Herbery. He wanted us to know. He wanted us to know that he had not personally had any notices for odor, and that if there were future notices of odor, that we should suspect that it was our operation. But that was his comments.
What's kind of one of the issues we've dealt with? Spot smell, isn't
Yeah, but we've also dealt with that applicant in a number of issues, and pretty squishy.
Have we gotten any odor complaints from him?
He's busy, he's not cultivating.
It's a retail.
Yeah, he's not
No,
cultivating.
yeah, he says here in your violation summary that he did give an odor complaint. He does have cultivation in that retail spot as well.
A little bit, right?
Yeah,
So you very small.
it's a small one, yeah.
So he told you he had no odor complaint, but it wasn't here.
Did he file that as a formal?
And he just offered that at the community council meeting.
Everyone else was very supportive.
December of 2018.
Well, you know, odor's been a challenge. I mean, when we started this, you read everything, you say, we will have no odor, we will have carbon, you go through the narrative
Oh, yeah.
everyone gives us. There will be no odor issue, but what we know is that there are, you know,
Indeed.
I think more than what we actually hear.
Well, I think, and we've had one odor issue once before at our Cinnabar Loop location, and that has been over a year ago. Is that right?
Yeah, it was right when we first opened. We had we weren't using the proper style of filtration. We changed those filters out to 100% carbon filter, and that eliminated the problem. We haven't had any issues with it since. We work really closely with Elaine from the enforcement division.
Okay, good. Anything else on this? Dick, any thoughts?
No.
Is this whose district is this? This isn't yours?
Is it Eric or Dick? It's around the border.
It's right around the border on Arctic. I'm pretty sure it's with them. Any recommendation?
Yeah, we'll move this forward.
Move this forward in a second. Okay, any opposition? Dick?
No opposition.
Okay, all right, thank you. See you Tuesday?
Thank you guys. Okay, so next up is summary of violations, and we should all have a copy of this. And is someone here who's?
No, code enforcement just submitted it as their quarterly report.
Okay, so what do we have here? The dates, 2018. Okay, so these are all last quarter. Okay,
Correct.
Quarterly report would be that. So Danish Gardens 2.
I don't have someone from code enforcement here.
We should have them next time.
Last intense ongoing inspections.
These violations were last summer.
Well, yeah.
Summer.
For us.
Yeah, but like Danish, if you look at abate no later than 1/9/2019, we don't have a final report here, so that's not very cool.
So at this point, we have an application being reviewed for Danish Gardens. So as part of that, we do the taxes, fees, and fines. So this is being discussed currently based off of the other application.
So they're
Any of that
applying-
has to be paid before it can be signed off on. So I haven't heard anything from code enforcement that it has been paid yet, but they're discussing it with the administrative hearing officer to see what the next step is, since they may have missed that deadline.
But this is for a license renewal, aren't those all in August?
So this was actually on his other license, and the renewal was the one that had a chunk of the odor violation that it was deemed paid at the point of the renewal approval. There were these 3 other violations that had not actually been submitted to the owner yet, and so there was some discussion as to whether those ones could be put towards that renewal or not, and legal's opinion was no, because at that point it wasn't applicable to that. So the administrative hearing officer had a separate process for these ones, and so that's kind of what they're doing. But we have another application for a separate license under Danish Gardens, and as part of that review, we do the taxes, fees, and fines. And so this came up for this new application that will be coming before you soon. So
So
they
at
are
that point-
discussing it with the administrative hearing officer, is my understanding.
So it'll pay his fines. That's some leverage.
I think
but
so.
we'll solve
Yeah.
the odor issue.
You ask us that's
But the violation I was looking at wasn't the fee, it was the odor. And they have a date of 1/9, and you can't answer this question. It would be really nice to have someone from upstairs talk about this, because we're unable to have this conversation thoughtfully without them.
Well, we can maybe ask them to come to the next meeting, or when would their license go?
Do you know when the renewal is coming up for Danish Gardens? It's not
It's
until the end of
February.
February. That's the last meeting in
Or
February.
you want to wait till then?
Yeah,
Maybe
because
So sometime in
21st.
February, we'll
even,
review it.
like, if you look at the state violations, they show as late as 10/20, a strong odor detected, and, you know.
And as you see on 1115, they're delinquent on their excise tax, which I'm sure the state resolves quickly.
Okay, so what do you want to do with this? We read it, we're educated, or do you want to?
I would prefer to have this conversation once more with someone from code enforcement that deals with these issues.
Well, I think we instituted this policy, right, because we were sort of surprised by the Alaska Sense issues that came, the severity of them. And I think, you know, nothing here sort of jumps out at me the way that their violations did. Maybe the AK joint conflicting information on marijuana inventory tracking, I'm not sure what that means exactly, but you know, I think this has served its purpose in the sense that I don't see any of the sort of egregious violations that caused the problems in Alaska Sense.
I would argue that it would be difficult to make that determination without having a narrative of what's going on, and we can best see that narrative in a simple verbal report with these folks than forcing them to sit down and write stuff. But with this top line,
Sure.
one sentence, it could very well be that this is the same information we had previously, but then once the rumor mill started we started hearing reports, then we dug in and got the information. And so I would believe that we would be wise if we're going to review their violations, and we have the people who wrote the violations here to tell us about what is actually happening today, as opposed to this.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that at all. I think it'd be great to have them here. I do know that their time is precious. I'd like to give them, like, be able to come in, come out, and we do it at the beginning of the meeting instead of the end, so that they can go.
Yeah.
The AMCO, of course, we can't force a state employee to be here. Do we think that our code enforcement is sort of abreast of what the AMCO violations mean too?
They have told us that they work closely with them.
Yeah.
And so I would be fine personally just hearing from our team.
Well, I'd be curious if they're not paying their state taxes, do we know if they're paying the city tax as well? If they're a retail, like maybe none of these are Danish Gardens, it's wholesale.
And
So
so
the-
farm
so,
jets.
I mean, the issue with the state tax would only be to cultivation, right? So they would never be.
And, you know, in the review, the only thing that came up for Danish Gardens, at least, was the administrative hearing officers' fines, so.
I have a question. Does anybody know exactly what unattended MJ product means? How do you have it unattended?
So my understanding was that there was a bud tender at the counter showing a customer sample jars. The customer asked for something else. The bud tender turned around to grab it, and he grabbed the product and pocketed it.
Oh,
So they caught it on camera, they reviewed it, and it was a self-report. So they did work on following that up with the state,
kind of
and
a sticky finger situation.
apparently, I guess they knew the customer, and he came back in, and they confronted him with it, and he apologized and brought back in whatever was left of the product. So.
Cameras, man, everywhere.
Huh. And that was it? They didn't do anything else with them?
I don't know that.
Okay, so, well, I think this is actually interesting, this is a good report, but we could flesh it out. Well, how about if we wait, and when they bring that next license to us, then we'll have, probably, Dave Wyrick would be here, get code enforcement with this, and then it's an issue too, if he hasn't paid the fine, right?
Right.
So we can deal with that at once, and that'll be sometime in February. That works.
I think that's good. I think from a procedural perspective, we should just couple the code enforcement with the report, and then it doesn't get into the scenario where we're having a accuser and accusee and defenses, and I don't think that's the road we want to go down. I think we just want to have the report briefed.
If Dane Wyrick's here with code enforcement talking about this, then we'll be back and forth.
No, that's what I'm saying, and that's fine to do, but I think from a procedural perspective, it's better to have it where it's just a low grade, hey, give us a report on these items, so we don't raise up kind of that energy around a license in particular. just a report.
Sure. Chris? If the body would like, we could certainly have them prepare a written summary, 1 or 2 sentences of each violation you want more information on, or each violation on there, just read through it and then make a determination.
Would it be less onerous, or, I think I agree with Chris that preferable to have them just come for the first 15 minutes and present this. Can they do that?
They're equally onerous, so whichever one you want to go, but if you are looking for immediate satisfaction, you probably could spit something out written much faster.
Well, you know, what,
think it's more
maybe on that
forward.
is, you know, there's some fairly simple, you know, discussion in this column. Maybe there's enough here. You know, the way the code is, if there's odor, our code just says you have to do something to fix it, right? So if they say, okay, we'll change the filters, I mean, they've done something, and that's what we're ongoing.
Yeah. It's the condition that we place on the approval of cultivation facilities. I believe the wording is along the lines of, you know, if odors detected, additional measures may be required to mitigate the issue. So again, that's why it kind of goes on and on and on, because they'll try one thing and that doesn't work. They'll try another thing, doesn't work. They'll try the last thing and that works. But there also needs to be some way to allow them time to fix the issue as well.
Well, I mean, it sounds like here they have some odor complaints, May, June, late June. And then as a result, final order of abate violation no later than January of 2019. That's 6 months. You know, if that's the correct timeline here. Do you have an idea of that?
So Elaine said Rich Byrne is on his way down,
No.
so he may be able to
Guess that's
answer that
all.
better.
Should we wait a moment, or you want to move on? I wanna hold-
He's on his way right
He's gonna
now.
be here in a moment.
Yeah, he's just upstairs.
Dick, do you have a copy of the violation summary?
No, I don't. If they'd send it to me, I'd appreciate it.
Is that possible?
It's on the website. Yeah.
It's all in your district, Dick. I don't know what goes on.
Dick, it's on
I know
the,
exactly what place is, John.
it's also posted on the Community and Economic Development webpage. But I think
But I'll go,
I'm having trouble sending it to
maybe I'll go and find it.
Rich, welcome. Hi. Thank you. So your summary intrigued us, and we want more information. Chris, you had some questions?
Well, yeah, I just would, for the first one there, it says final order 1/9/2019. Are you satisfied?
With them? Yeah, we haven't had any more odor issues there.
Since June?
Yes.
And, the state notes on 10/20, they had a strong odor detected. Have you
Yeah,
been following that, or, you know?
Yeah, we've been by there a number of times, but we haven't detected anything, and I'm not sure how they're doing theirs, if it's just if they detect it in the middle of the street or something like that, but you know, you guys know how we're doing ours, it's 15 minutes and 2 people, and because we're very well aware of the escape with the doors. We know that's an issue.
So it's when most of the odor comes out, when people are coming and going from the building?
Yes, absolutely.
And so my real questions are just on, can you just give us a walkthrough on this report briefly, status, and how things are going really?
Okay, yeah, Danish Gardens, we're satisfied there so far. We think they got their issues corrected. The last since we've been doing the ongoing inspections, 2 exteriors and then 1 interior, and they've been going good. We haven't noticed anything.
That's saying something.
Yeah, it is. Fuzzy Bud's in the old AIH building down on Post Road there. they were having some filter issues. They had some filters burn up, and they've got those replaced. And I was there day before yesterday, and I think they got that under control. That seems to be a common theory with some of the cultivators. They'll have they'll burn, some of their systems burn up filters for some reason. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I'm not a mechanical engineer, but that seems to be an issue with some of them. And the Arctic Herbery, it was that was also I think burned up filters.
And the question was asked, are you versed on the state violations at all?
A little bit. We don't, we're aware of them, but if they're going to enforce something, we let them do it, and they're kind of in the same boat as us. That if we take a lead on something, they let us, keep the lead.
So Fuzzy Buds has both retail and cultivation, right? So maybe on this report, we have to state what type of license they are, because I presumed in my head that was their retail location, only because there was a complaint about it. And that was the one off of Northern Lights, off Northern Lights, just to the east of maybe Denali Street, right?
That's the one next to the that Felix asked us about.
Yeah, not the one that's right on the corner of the Trendsetters, but the one that's tucked back behind.
Yeah, they've changed their name, not Fuzzy Buds, as a
Oh, okay, they changed their name.
Fuzzy Monkey or something like that now.
Okay.
And yeah, we monitored that for about a month, and never substantiated that. We did figure there is another grower somewhere around there that we would get some.
Unregulated.
Yeah, it could be there's some residential properties there too that we think it's one of them. It's just somebody's private stuff. But we're finding that's fairly common occurrence these days.
Yeah, no, it's good. So it's good to know it's their cultivations.
And then the only thing new that didn't make the list, we got a complaint, I think, day before yesterday about a freestanding sign on a place we haven't been there to look at yet, but we'll do that next month.
Like a sandwich sign out in front or something?
Yeah, I'm even sure it's just freestanding sign is all we got. So.
Well, I guess while you're here, how's Alaska Sense doing? Is this ongoing inspection?
Everything seems to be going good. The only time we've got just even a hint of a smell, we've really attributed to that to an opening door. When they're taking garbage out the back, or opening one of the back doors near their cultivation areas. And it's like I said, it's just a fleeting thing that we attributed to the door, and we stayed 15 minutes, and that was it. Just a little puff.
Thank you. Of course.
Any issues with their waste disposal?
No, we've been checking it, and they're grinding and mixing exactly how they're supposed to.
But the root balls no longer have to be ground.
Right.
And have you noticed that a variety of facilities have stopped grinding the root balls?
I haven't really checked.
Well, that was what we said they could do, so I assume that's what they're doing.
Yep.
Anything else? All right, thanks for coming down.
Oh, can we do this? So when we get these quarterly, can we have you here at the beginning of the meeting to do this again?
Yeah, I meant to put this on my calendar. I forgot about it. I was getting a new phone set up.
We'll schedule it towards the front so that you can come.
Okay, I meant to put it on my calendar. I just forgot.
We got 15 minutes. We'll do 15 minutes. We have any other. Okay.
Thank you very much.
So next up is our draft on marijuana business.
Mr. Chair, I've had a PowerPoint to show a few slides related to soil limits. So if we could take a pause and turn on the projector and load screen.
Do you want to do this now, or should we do MFUs first?
Let's do MFUs first.
Because that's pretty much, we got MFU people here.
See, we're going to do the other ones first.
We're here for marijuana.
Okay.
You want to do this discount thing too? Okay, let's stick.
I have a PowerPoint for the MFU as well.
Alright, so we'll do the discount.
I just wanted to technology to turn this on. Is that right? You guys have experience here, don't you? Thank you. I wasn't about digital things. I guess it needs a little warm up. So, which one are we looking at first?
The discounts.
Okay. I can sort of walk through what I've done here while we wait for that to warm up. So, first of all, I guess our last meeting we had some discussion about discounts and how that would be defined in the current sales price and what's included, what's not. And looking at my notes when I was going back to draft some changes, what I got is Reed's clarification, but I also saw we didn't have real consensus, at least that my notes reflected, in terms of how to make that clarification. So I did what I could though, and if I could show you what's changed since the last draft at the last meeting, before I get to that PowerPoint. On page 1, line 21, I added for frequent indoor establishments to reflect that. We're also talking about those frequent customer cards, sort of like those coffee cards, you know, you buy around 10 times, you get a discount or something. So I understood we also wanted to cover those so that a discounted price or something after frequent visits, you still pay tax on the full sales price value without that discount taken first. And then page 2, I've put in 2 options here, trying to reflect what we did. Option 1's lines 8 to 14, simply trying to say, give discount a definition in terms of what's included and what's not. And so let me note here throughout all of chapter 12, 50, the retail sales tax and marijuana chapter, the word discount that we're defining here is only used in one other place. It's used in the definition of sales price. So we're not like affecting a whole bunch of other provisions, we're just affecting the definition of sales price by adding the definition of discount. So as you see, I'm saying what it means and then what it does not include. Does not include a temporary reduction in sales price of marijuana or marijuana product offered to any purchaser as promotion, such as a holiday or anniversary sale discount. So any purchaser, you know, who enters the store, it's a promotion. I think that's the distinction we wanted in terms of the others. So employee incentive discounts, general employee discounts, membership, and a cloud sort of discount. So option 2, it's kind of lengthy and it's sort of based on the definition of sales price that is in the Streamlined Sales Tax project. It's a project to sort of streamline and have uniform definitions for among various states that have a sales tax and jurisdictions. So that's the option 2 definition. So I drafted this up and then I did a little more research, which I was going to show you here on the PowerPoint. I said, well, I mean, sales taxes and how they're handled, it's very nuanced. It's got its own vernacular in the sales tax world. So I thought I recalled that someone from the Department of Law had said our sales tax definition in Chapter 1250 was modeled after the Denver, Colorado sales tax. So I looked at what they have, and I just pulled it up here, and I wanted to note that the Denver sales tax code, they have marijuana sales tax, and they have a general sales tax. And this definition of price, of purchase price in Denver, it just applies to their sales taxes generally. So that definition would apply to their general sales tax, the marijuana sales tax, and resident sales tax. And then when they apply their sales taxes, they have the general, I think it's 5%, or 4 point something percent uniform sales tax plus the 5% marijuana sales tax. So their definition's kind of lengthy. It's also very similar to the streamlined sales tax project definition. If we go on, please. So it took up 2 slides just to show what it did. And it was just to show an example of how complicated the definition for sales price can be. So next I also looked at, next slide, the city and borough of Juneau. So Juneau has a general sales tax as well. And they also have a specific sales tax for marijuana. So subsection E at the top is just for levying a sales tax on marijuana retail sales. Then again, similar to Denver, they have the definitions that apply to all of their sales taxes, and they have selling price, which is kind of similar to what we have in our existing chapter 1250. But what's interesting here is that they have administrative guidance from Juneau's finance department, not in their code. And I point this out because after I drafted the changes and I saw these, I think that this is probably the way I would want to go, how we revise our definitions. So it's administrative guidance, but for municipality including how our code works and how our policy guidance documents work, we would really want this to be in code and not a policy guideline. So anyway, the sales price, they sort of to clarify what the definition means, what discount means, they listed different types of discounts, quantity discounts. So if you order bulk, the price drops, right? They said that that's okay, that's part of the selling price. Sales tax is to the discounted selling price. So you don't apply the tax before that quantity discount. Cash discounts, granted to private customers as an incentive to pay early. I guess this, I can't explain all that Juneau has there, but what I think I'm pointing out is we have discussed last time specific types of discounts, whether they should be included or not. So perhaps the solution for our code is to have discount and then the certain types of discounts, define certain types of discounts, and then say which ones are included in sales price, which ones aren't. That might be the simplest way to go. Go to the next slide. The streamlined sales and tax agreement. There's 24 states that participate. Interesting enough, not Alaska or Colorado. What caught me is that they have uniform definitions that all these states use, so I thought it would be helpful. But as you've seen from my draft or option 2, and what's the definition of sales price, it's a little complicated, it's long, and it relates not just to a straightforward transaction for a good, but also sales taxes on goods, services, rents, and so forth, all types of situations where you might have maybe purchasing a car and there's financing involved and there's service charges and all that. So the complicated definition covers that, and I don't think we really need that. See how long it goes. But I thought that how they say sales price should not include these things seems applicable to what we're trying to do, but I think the interest in financing, carrying charges and so forth, I can't really picture how that might really be applicable to a retail marijuana store. And then sales price shall include, so these are the discounts where we want to say, well, those discounts need to be included in the sales tax price, even though the purchaser actually pays the lower amount after the discount applies. Again, though, it's sort of a convoluted definition. Some of it I didn't really understand. And one of the following criteria is not that it goes on. I don't really want to go through all that language, and my point here was just I didn't want to keep all this research to myself. I wanted to share it with you and see where I was going, and how I ended up with what I recommend and why I'm not finished here. But I think if we could go back to one more slide. We go to the end. Yeah, what model should we follow? And again, I think maybe Juneau's administrative guidelines might be the most straightforward thing we want to do. It's clearer and understandable. But And now that, like, we leave it to the common community to some guidance as to which way we want to go. So I hope that's helpful.
But it's definitely something. George?
Yeah, I mean, so the bottom line for me is just clearly ready to take the next step. There's still some work that needs to be done. Is option one, is that what we saw last time, or is this something else? Because it seems almost inverted from another conversation that we had had. Is that what we saw last time, option one? Or is it different?
Perhaps my notes weren't really clear on last time. Which one were we referring to?
Option one?
Option one, opposite of what we discussed last time.
Well, I thought it was, because here it's talking about discount means a participation in a program offered by a retailer requires dues or fees. I thought we weren't going to go down that route because it was we thought there might be a way to get around the usual sales tax. If you pay, if you said, it's $200 and your marijuana price is less reduced, and now you have still had an interaction between the two parties, and finance is changing hands, but it's no longer subject to the tax. Whereas on the other hand, I thought we were talking about like holiday or anniversary sales being the discounts that we were looking for. Maybe I've inverted it in my head.
Here's the question, I think,
Well,
Dean, does the discount is taxable if it's reimbursable, if it's paid for dues, if it's these things, and it's not taxable, or it's the discount that is taxable does not include temporary reduction of prices. Is that how this reads?
Yeah, that last sentence, temporary reduction in price, that's meant to refer to like a holiday discount or an anniversary sale, 10% off for any customer.
I see what you're saying.
walk
So
in.
I don't know if that's the
As
effect, but I
opposed-
think that's what the intent is.
Yeah, I mean, but that to me seems like we're making it way too complicated. Like, we should be like, this is sales price with the discounts taken out, as opposed to you're saying that it's only the discounts are added on basically for the purposes of the sales tax.
If I understand this correctly, that's what this says.
I think this option one, the first part,
Yeah.
it says discount means these things, and those are the things that would still be taxed.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
like the $200, regular value, and then
Right.
you have a membership or loyalty, it's reduced to $150. Pay tax on $200
Right.
if that discount.
Great.
falls
Then
within
this does what I thought it does. It's just because, but it's a weird way to.
It's inverted.
That's the way
Yeah, it's inverted.
Yeah.
And so the question I have on that then, we didn't add what you have down here, a preferred customer that is available to any patron does not constitute membership in such group. And so I think that language should be up in number one, right, to establish that those people who are receiving the benefit of being an ongoing and good customer but not paying for membership are still allowed to be tax neutral or tax.
Yeah,
Yes.
that part at the bottom of page 2, 4B for the preferred customer discount.
Right.
It's pretty clear you want that added into the option one language.
Just
I
line
understand.
51 in the parenthesis there to the line 1 on page 3. Just language that clearly asserts in there that such as a holiday or anniversary sale discount or a membership that's not paid. That language, membership that is available to any patron that does not constitute, I guess use the word membership. A benefit that is available to any patron does not constitute membership in such a group. Does that make sense? A benefit.
I think so. And I need to apologize. I didn't really get this done in time to send to the finance, the treasury division folks. So Ms. Cruz and from the law department, Wayne Stewart, who had worked on this issue. And I don't see them here today, but I think they would be out clarifying that language. but it looks like option one is a good way to go. And what do you think of including in option one specific, like, I guess maybe in option one the discount means, and then maybe some sub-paragraphs, sort of like what Junior has, to find specific types of discounts, cash discounts, manufacturer discounts.
I think this serves, I would just add such as a holiday anniversary sale discount or a benefit generally available to any patron.
You're saying option one?
Uh-huh.
But my sense, we just got this and it's complicated. It was highlighted with a PowerPoint that it's more complicated than I thought. And it hasn't gone to tax, so we just kind of wait on this, read it, absorb it, and then we can move. Because MFUs, I think we're closer.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just think the only piece that's missing out of the conversation we had the last time is that piece that allows for a general, it's, what do they call it? It's a, we had a term for it last meeting, a regular customer, you shop 100 times, you get
We don't want to say loyalty.
the loyalty, that was it. And so, right, but that was the term we used, an unpaid loyalty program that's a benefit generally available to any patron.
And it's the type of discount, unpaid loyalty discount, something that should be taxed or not taxed. We pay what we're paying after the discount.
Yeah.
We can tax them.
Yeah, and that's, in that sense, it fits in that second paragraph, or the second phrase, if you will, second sentence of the option one. It's amazing, that's only 2 sentences.
Let's say we wait on this.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? They talk about a third party, you know, some sort of discount or program offered by a third party. So do we have manufacturers out there, or growers or something that are offering discounts to, I mean, where did the third party thing come from? What's that all
I'm sort of
about?
guessing. I think it can be several of those things you mentioned. So a manufacturer or say a cultivator is offering a coupon discount for their product, and they reimburse the retailer for that amount of the discount when the customer brings their coupon in.
Has anybody ever done that?
And
Are we
another
aware?
way-
Is that going on out there? Does anybody know?
Another thing was also like Groupon. Well, Groupon's the third party.
Marijuana Groupons, huh?
You could, but you know, if you go to Lowe's and you buy paint, you're gonna get a rebate thing on your
Right.
thing, and you mail it in and you get a rebate. So, I mean, it's not that unusual. The manufacturer is doing it, not Lowe's.
Right.
Your $5 check.
I thought it was more like, you know, every Alaska Airlines employee in Anchorage gets a Copper River fleece, right? Or that used to be. So maybe a big company could be like, we're buying you all, you get free marijuana, you know? Like all of our employees get marijuana.
It feels with this conversation, what we're doing is regulating an industry that's not yet happening, right? We're creating regulations for a marketplace that isn't in existence. There are no Groupons, in fact, they're federally illegal for third-party coupons for any kind of credit card transaction online. And so the question we should ask ourselves is, do we want to spend the time and energy to regulate the unknown in the case that it may exist at some time in the future because it does exist in other markets? Or do we just want to focus on the question before us, which is we have this tax issue related to discounts? And I would suggest we narrowly tailor these things instead of try to predict where the market's going to go, and
Well-
we can respond to it later.
I mean, yes, I think that if we were just the legal language as is, like you said, just adding the one thing that you wanted, then if that issue develops in the future and somebody wants us to have a program like that, then they can come back to us and ask us to change it. Right.
And what we've seen at this time is they've been incredibly conservative with stretching the rules. There might be one player out there who's not, but, you know, they're all gathering the taxes on any discount that are currently applied, even though the question is arguable, even according to our tax people at the last meeting. And so, at this time, still, we have an industry willing to comply.
It is, but they're also asking for clarification, and if these things will come up. I mean, it could be that some grower wants to promote their product and says, well, we'll offer a rebate to your customers, which is not unusual in the industry, as we saw here. And we've seen it in our lives. So I mean, to deal with something that hasn't come up isn't wrong. I mean,
I'm not saying it's
otherwise,
wrong.
If someone wants to do that program, they have to come to us and we have to change the code so they can do this.
I'm just asking the question, do we philosophically want to regulate a market that doesn't exist?
Do we want to allow those kind of rebate programs to lower the retail sales tax paid?
Well, we should decide, would that lower the tax? You know, if you get a $5 rebate from the grower,
Yeah.
goes directly to the,
There's another,
I would think. I don't know, I
that
would
strikes
say
me as
max,
another way
but-
there could be a loophole there as well.
But you could say, that would be taxed.
Right, which is what this does.
But that's already monetary consideration, right? And so the retailer, they're receiving monetary consideration. If they're getting $5 for the product that they discounted, they are actually getting monetary consideration.
Right, so they should be taxed on that.
Yes.
Okay, then this is good,
Yeah,
as
that's
is,
good.
let's leave it alone.
I think this does that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
Let's wait, cogitate on it, send it to the tax people, add my one little phrase, and then have it back.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that direction.
Everybody get that? Anyone else have comments? Okay. So, moving on, we have an increasingly complicated mobile food use.
MFU.
That's a term that Congress will use.
We're at 10:09, we got the meeting till 10:30, it's probably not enough time. How are we doing? Right up. Dean?
Oh.
We have two pieces.
So, from last time, I split that draft into two separate draft ordinances, one about Title 21 changes and one about Title 16, 23. So, just for clarification, the Title 21 draft, some of that language is sort of generic, such as allowed in any zoning district. The reason is because I rather expect this to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, who could really dig in and say which zoning districts this is appropriate or not, using the repurposed shipping container, and how to distinguish between unmodified intermodal shipping container and a repurposed one. So I understood last time there weren't design standards and so forth. But we didn't really get to dig into the Title 21 issues at the last, and you guys just maybe start there, since we have a lot of the planning folks here. We have the other one for Title 16 and 23. There's, I have a little PowerPoint about that, but given time, I'd really leave it up to committee to decide which one you wanted to talk first. But like,
Well, isn't the 16 one we feel we can move forward with and pass?
I think that's true. So, just Michelle, and others, I guess, Dave and Francis. So we did. So we separated the Title 21 and the Title 16 stuff, and we kind of got to a point. We said there's probably more we could do on the Title 21 things, but they said, well, let's send it to the Planning Commission. That's kind of what Dean just said.
Yeah.
Does that work for you?
I think, I would not suggest sending this to the Planning Commission as it's written. Because we're gonna have to send out public notice to the community councils, and I think as this is written, this is gonna receive a lot of negative feedback. And I think that there are a few things that we need to look at. One, does it even need to be a new use? Because we're not sure that it does. I mean, really, it's not a use, it's just we're saying that these uses can now be allowed in this building type. So there's that question. So then we need to go through code and figure out, we know that a lot of the prohibitions are part of Title 23, but there are some places in Title 21 that restrict its use that we could change. But then when you look at it from a commercial or residential use, we need to understand, do we have enough design standards to make those appropriate? And then I know that I think all of our Spire senses went up when we saw that this was going to be an allowed use in every zoning district by right. There definitely, when we're looking at commercial and residential uses, we need to look at probably an appropriate review, whether that's an administrative site plan review or a major site plan review. We also aren't clear, and this is because we haven't had the opportunity to really take kind of a mock project through, but if it's clear when a structure becomes permanent or principal, and if it's clear when the parking requirement and other design standards that do exist for a building would kick in. So as it stands, I think we have so many questions that I don't think that it would be palatable to the community, or really, I don't think that the Planning and Zoning Commission could sink their heads around it and sink their teeth into meaningful changes. And we'd rather, maybe through Quincy and Dean, try to work on those issues before it even gets to a public setting. And then, I don't know if this is, maybe the time, or maybe this is something we talk about offline, but we also need to, the planning department needs to understand kind of the logistics of this and who's owning this ordinance. And because once we do send out the public notice and it gets to the community councils, I would suspect we're going to receive a lot of calls saying, can you come out and talk to us about this? And so I guess I would ask, are the authors of this, are you planning on doing that public outreach? I would also say then we need to talk about making sure that you're set up for success, and maybe it's bringing a staff person with you to make sure that we're getting the right feedback from those comments that we're hearing and collecting those in a transparent way. Not that you wouldn't, but that's something that we deal with on a regular basis. So generally those are my concerns. I think Dave and Francis have similar and maybe some additional, some of the things that they've seen. So, but I guess in general, the summary is we don't recommend this going to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Good, appreciate that. And one thing that it worried me, so we say, okay, these are good in all districts, but connexes are allowed in all districts, and then you say, but there are some restrictions.
There are a lot of
Basically-
accessory uses.
Accessory, not a
Yeah,
primary use.
they are not allowed as a primary use in any district at this time. So that's going to be a new change and a very scary change, because traditionally the community has seen poor examples of connexes being used and abused, and abused in the sense that they're kind of temporary, but without enforcement, they never get removed.
If I can just make a
Yeah.
quick comment on your original point as to whether or not all of this is actually necessary. Connexes, and maybe Ross can key in on this. If Ross, if they can meet the structural requirements, would we permit them through Title 23?
Yeah, basically.
Because if we're looking at Title 21, we have standards in place. We've got landscaping, we've got parking, we've got paving, we've got, a lot of characteristics of use in place. If Title 23 permitted them through that section of code, I don't know that it couldn't actually be done today.
I would caution that statement, but that's correct. But what we need to also evaluate is could it be done in a way that we want it to be done?
Right.
And does that
And
further
that's-
the community goals? And that's the part that we need to work out all of this to understand what it is that we're really changing, and really what are we really changing, and is this helping what we want to see from the community and in our comp plans and growth?
So right now, where is what districts can a mobile food unit exist in? Because here we say these would be allowed in every district. If we just said only the districts where MFUs are already allowed.
What Michelle is saying is that our table of allowed uses in Chapter 5, it has a list of so we don't have, the only architectural building design standards are for large commercial establishments and for certain residential buildings. But we have a list of prohibited uses and structures, and that includes particle accelerators and fabric structures. But for instance, we don't have a prohibition on Quonset huts. So if a Quonset hut came in for a building permit and was permitted as a building, I suspect it'd have to have, certain structural requirements and snow loads and foundation or whatever Title 23 requires. Title 21 doesn't say anything about that. So would that be allowed per the zoning? Well, I guess yes, because there's no prohibition on that structure type.
But I think what you're asking though is really we're talking about the mobile food units, and so
Yeah.
and right now the code prohibits the use of a Connex or an outcoat trailer for the use of a mobile food. So I think what you're asking is, could we just look at all the districts where they're the mobile food units or kiosks are permitted and make that a permanent use in that district.
Right.
Is that what you were really?
Open to everything, which would be residential and all that kind of stuff. Say, well, we're not really thinking that. We're thinking.
Or is it
for
just,
mobile food units.
well, then is it just changing the use specific standards for, it's not even for the mobile food units? Because I think that's what's prohibiting it from Title 21. Looking at Dave and
Right,
Francis.
right.
So really, it's not changing it and allowing it to districts. It's changing the definition and the use specific standards for a mobile food unit to allow them to exist in a NAPCO trailer. So it's not a zoning district issue. It's a use specific issue.
We want to tamper as little with Title 21 as possible, I think. And we got into this thing, Title 21 appears to be an issue, and we started getting into this. But
Yeah.
I think that's where we want to be. And Chris had a comment.
Well, there are two things. One is this conversation is generally around mobile food units. However, there's a whole move of technology and developing standards across the world, across the developed world, where these are acceptable and interesting. And so then, with our conversation after the meeting the other day, what became clear to me was that the sticking point is the specific detail of where and what and how it would look like and what are the requirements and all of this. And so those are two separate questions, I think, the mobile food unit and what's allowed where, and then this broader question. And to the broader question, which seems like we may have simultaneously dived into both worlds unintentionally, is a conversation we should be contemplating, but I think it's something that I would want the experts to bring forward to us in the sense of this is a way to reasonably approach this question instead of us just muddling around.
And it seems like it could be almost phased out so that we address first and quickly address the mobile food unit issue. But the other, and we've seen examples, and actually on the heels of this meeting last week, we met with a developer who is, highly regarded, has done some proven positive projects here in other cities. And he was excited to hear that we were contemplating that and had examples, like real pictures with him about these being used in other communities in a very good way with design standards as even interim uses on properties. So we see the benefit, but recognize that that needs to be but very much thoughtfully presented, because this is a case where we need to put our best foot forward, because there is a huge negative connotation with these.
And I can speak to that. And when the ADU conversation was happening, I had a whole wave of very well-connected, well-communicating community activist people in South Addition freaking out because their perspective was that we're effectively arguing to allow Connex ADUs all over South Addition to house homeless people is what their argument was. And it was amazing to see the wave of people who got caught up into that panic. And so as much as we can avoid that panic, the better.
Yeah.
And so I concur with the idea that we take it thoughtfully.
Mr. Weddleton, your earlier question, where are food and beverage kiosks allowed? Those or mobile food units, they are prohibited in every residential district, and they are permitted by right in every commercial and industrial district.
That gets us a little closer. I mean, that's kind of what we're thinking here. So where we broadens it to everywhere.
So I can say, just to Chris's point, I think that the mobile food unit issue that we're dealing with here can probably be resolved fairly quickly. I think the broader issue is the one that we really need time on.
Let's not do that today.
No.
That's worth looking at. So would it take a code change to
to
allow
make
these connexes?
Yeah.
Can you prepare that?
I think we can work with Quincy and Dean to do that, because, and you're talking about for just the mobile food.
Just really focus on that.
Yeah, because I think it's just a matter, and I'm going to look to Dave and Francis on this. I think it's just a matter of changing that use specific standard and going through code and making sure there's nothing else, flushing out to make sure that there's nothing else prohibiting it.
The one question I have with regard to that is that if you go look at the use specific standards for food and beverage kiosks, I'm on page 4 of 7, looking at line 34, where it talks about that the kiosk should be on wheels to facilitate movement onto and off the site. Typically speaking, connexes are not on wheels. I do recognize that they do have to be licensed by the state as on a chassis on wheels, but I can tell you that the state doesn't typically look at that. They just license it. So we might want to look at if we're going to permit intermodal shipping containers, we might want to look at that use-specific standard, because if you simply permit it and they can't meet the use-specific standard, well then are we going in a direction that we don't want to go?
If I could, I think we addressed that question in the other ordinance. If you look at page 3,
I did look at that.
right, line
Yeah.
44, number 3, so I think it's a matter of just kind of making a parallel.
Well, and that's my first point was that the state in licensing them as a chassis, trailer is not looking at whether or not they're actually attached to a chassis on wheels. So,
I get that, but don't we want our code to reflect reality more than the state's ineffectiveness and regulation?
100%, Chris, I 100% agree with you there. And the reality is that most of these probably aren't going to be on chassis. People
Right.
aren't going to invest the money into putting them on chassis and on wheels. So you probably want to look at that.
This language here. there.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
So,
I just want to.
I just want to comment on that quickly. I think I'm agreeing with Chris. Yeah, I would like to get that language removed, essentially. I mean, or harmonized, and we can lead the way on that. And then, if a state regulator eventually does come down on somebody, that person should go to their state legislator,
Right.
Which then would make the exact same change for me. Right?
Yeah, and I'm not for or against that standard. What I'm saying is that I don't want to permit something that is otherwise not, it will never be permitted. So, just bringing up that sticking point.
and that's the whole point of this, is to eliminate a process that the public has said you can do this, and then they go through the chain and they find they can't do this.
Right.
At every turn, they're foiled.
Pete?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, since we're talking about focusing this on just mobile food units and what they're allowed in Title 21, I think that falls short of the objective that we had, which was that recent business owner, the AK Alchemist. They had 5 shipping containers, and 1 was a mobile food unit, 3 were like storage, but 1 I don't think was a mobile food unit. It was used for the service of the alcohol next to the deck. So if we're just focusing on where mobile food units in which districts they're allowed in, I don't think that would address that. And that was the objective, the assignment, is to see if we can have repurposed shipping containers allowed in the Alchemist type of use. So if it's just mobile food units, I think we still have one unaddressed situation there. But correct me if I'm wrong.
If it becomes a permitted use, can they have one as accessory food storage? I mean, it might still mean they can't have the other 3. I just am.
I don't think he's talking about the storage ones. I think that's an issue that has to be worked out a different way. But I think he's talking about the service one that's attached to the deck, right? I think he's more. Are you speaking specifically about that one?
Yeah.
Right.
As I understood, that wasn't, I guess, licensed as a mobile food unit and didn't have a chassis and wheels. The other one did, the coffee cart one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think, so we could ask, I think we could ask AK Alchemist, what's the status of the bar mobile food unit or Connex? Because if it got permitted as a mobile food unit, then that would maybe address the issue or the problem that Dean was raising. I would like to just sort of tease out this issue of, we have permitted principal uses and buildings and structures, and then we have a short list of sort of prohibited uses and structures. But mobile food units is a temporary sort of use and structure, and so it doesn't have any paved driveways or landscaping or required parking. It doesn't have any interior parking lot landscaping, walkways out to the street. So it doesn't have any of those Chapter 7 site design requirements that would apply to other businesses who built a permanent structure. So, AK Alchemist was permitted as a mobile food unit, and which has sort of limited permitting requirements. And so they sort of got off scot-free, and not, should someone have, if he had permitted it as a building, or if a restaurant had built a building, then they would have had to, pave a parking lot, put perimeter and interior landscaping, this walkway out to the street, screen their dumpster, they would have had to comply with some Title 21 stuff. But in Title 21, there's sort of this carved out thing, which is food and beverage kiosks where they, are a temporary use, and so they don't have to do any of that stuff. So that's where we got kind of into this thing. The other sort of oddity is that this is in the old code, which doesn't address some of these issues, whereas the new code clarifies it for us. And so it's complex because it's this special category of thing where they don't have to comply with a lot of stuff, but then there's the old code wrinkle to it. But yeah, I think we could call on Adam to say, like, are they good now? Because he called me yesterday. He's making some progress. Fine.
You want to sit up here?
Sure.
I thought this Title 21 would be quick, so.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna start with 2016.
Title 21 is never quit.
Yeah, that's why I suggested starting with 16, because that's the one thing that we can actually go forward with.
Well, maybe we can. So, 'cause, I mean, that is a pretty valid point. Where do you trigger? Maybe if you haven't moved in a year, obviously you can trigger or something. But, so even if you do the change of use stuff, you could work with Dean and try to get it, narrow this down substantially.
Yeah, I mean,
That would be Planning and Zoning Commission even that, though.
yes, because
Would
these are
that be
substantial.
inflammatory?
Yeah, because these would be, I think it'll be less inflammatory. I think we can hopefully get that. At this point, I think we can, if we separate the two issues and we keep it focused on mobile food units and we get some of these good questions addressed, I think it'll be less inflammatory. There's always going to be people who just don't understand what we're really trying to put forward. But it's going to be far less than I think as it exists today, and then also trying to move a much bigger ordinance through that addresses this on a bigger scale. So, but I think we still need to time, because it's obvious that there's some things we haven't considered, and I think, and that's where we were struggling really with, was when does something become permanent? When we have it's very clear in code what we can prove as a temporary use, and there's a time frame. But if you're in this case, we know that it's a temporary use, but that's going to be there for an extended period of time, longer than what we would traditionally call temporary. So we need to really wrap our heads around that, and how do we adequately address that, because we do want to set the bar fair for people who are doing bricks and mortar versus connexes. Sorry.
I've got one last one on that.
Oh.
Sorry. One thing we haven't done with this conversation, and this is the separate larger conversation about the function of repurposed connexes, is send this through our favorite kind of chop shop, and that's live, work, play. And I think that this is an opportunity to talk about urbanism and modern look and feel for certain areas. And so I don't know if it's inappropriate, but I certainly think that they might be a good first step in the kind of the mental picture conversation of what we're talking about.
I think there's probably validity to that. I also say there's some other people who are there. I would almost say someone like Shane Durant, who with CEI, Central Environmental Recycling, who is actually doing a project with connexes inside. I think there's some other user groups that may be
What I'm thinking is a public conversation about what these things look like and how they could be with people who are doing
This
it.
is getting in that bigger thing. Let's park. That's look how many months to deal with something like that. We need to focus on this. So I think where our direction now is you'll look at more of the change of use, so it'll be much more constrained to current districts where connexes can be used. You'll look at where you draw the line between permanent and temporary.
I think it's going to be, we're going to first look at how do we address the mobile food units, and drawing that line and making sure that we're taking into account the things that Francis mentioned with, when are we triggering the parking, and making sure all that's accounted for as it applies to the mobile food units. And then the second thing that we will do is the broader picture, more focusing, I think, on what Chris is getting to the point of how these can be used as alternative forms of housing and temporary or interim uses for commercial developments, and that bigger picture item, but separating the two out.
Yeah, that would be good. So, okay. So could we, now we'll do that, Dean?
I just want to ask for one piece of guidance from the definition of repurposed superintendent. I wrote in residential, commercial, or industrial use and occupancy, and obviously we're going to take out residential to keep this narrow, but commercial, that fits the use that we're trying to accommodate. Should we leave industrial in or take it out? This,
I'd leave it in.
narrow
I would move to extend
industrial.
compliance.
Second.
Any opposition? Dick, are you still on?
Dick?
Okay, so extend for 10 minutes. If that's enough. Okay, so you're at the definitions at page 3.
Okay. Yeah, so are we're narrowing this by taking out residential at this point. And the businesses we're addressing are commercial. So my question is, should we leave in industrial for this narrowed project, or take out industrial?
I think what's.
We don't know, because it's not a use, it's not a district-specific thing. It's, for this first one, it's just the mobile food units.
Okay.
So by virtue of it being allowed in the industrial district, we're addressing it in the industrial district.
I guess we can talk about that issue. while
Yeah,
we're
maybe
out.
I'm misunderstanding.
Okay.
Okay, so Title 21's done because you know what to do. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, good, thanks.
Well, can we hear Adam's response?
Okay.
So we,
Everything looks good. Maybe
Okay.
just a definition of retrofit would be beneficial, I think.
Adam, can I ask just a quick question? Is your intent, because I know this has been permitted as a mobile food unit, is it your intent to permit the connexes to be there permanently?
No.
I'm just thinking about
What's your time frame?
long-term plans.
so let's remove the word permanently. And what is your time frame for having it
Right.
there?
I would say a couple of years. But I have obviously bigger, better plans, and you know this isn't about me; it's about Anchorage. And I would challenge anybody to drive down the street now and not see connexes. So I don't know if you guys drive down the street on almost any given street, and you're like, "There's a connex over there. There's a connex over there." I do the same thing, but yeah. So it's there's a bigger plan, obviously, and just waiting for the economy to pick up a little bit.
But in a sense, having to apply some, because it is a several year item. I mean, it would be realistic, or you would understand if there were conditions placed to put some investment. I mean, we're not talking about a 6-month temporary use. We're talking about an interim use at this point. Maybe we need to start looking at it in a different term versus temporary and permanent.
Absolutely.
But there could be some level of investment expected.
100%.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, let's look at the chapter 16, Title 16. We have Manny's point. Oh, you want to come out there? Cleo, you had a question?
Well, my question is, and this is probably for Aaron, would this change affect the other connexes on your property positively or negatively? As I read it, it would not take care of that.
Yes, and in all honesty, we did a workaround with that. So we recently just we welded on a chassis to the other connexes, all 3 of them, and we're getting them licensed. We got them licensed. They're mobile food units now, so that kind of resolves that issue, but it doesn't address the underlying issue of what needs to happen.
And that would be a Title 21 issue for the members of those mobile food units on a single lot.
Correct.
Is that-
You're saying that, you're questioning, what does Title 21 say about 5 MFUs on one?
Correct.
Well, there's,
It's not allowed, right?
no, well, a food and beverage kiosk is allowed in a commercial district and an industrial district in the new code. And, it's not really addressed specifically in the old code at all. Can they have a mobile food unit? Can they have 10 of them? I don't see there's a prohibition on it. What I spoke to earlier is that there's no regulation or limitation on the number. A traffic reviews the driving circulation pathway. The issue that where the assembly placed a condition on his alcoholic beverages conditional use permit was that all of the connexes not related to mobile food units need to be removed. So what we discussed with the Ross and me and some other folks discussed with Adam at an earlier meeting a few months ago was if he got them licensed as mobile food units, then that would remove that that connexes just for warehousing or storage prohibition that Title 21 might be a sticking point for him, right? And so you've done that.
Yeah.
So that was one path forward that we offered that is, it sounds like I'm hearing this morning that he's followed through on that. It was either that or remove them, right? I haven't memorized the condition of approval, I'm sure you do too. It says, remove all connexes that are not licensed mobile food units.
Or even storage, even if they're there for storage.
Well, if he's somehow able to get them permitted as mobile food units, then I'm not gonna, planning department has no objection.
What if it's I think the question is, what if it's a storage to that, provided to that mobile food unit?
So the issue here is that the mobile food unit is a temporary use, and you can only have storage as in connex as accessory use to a permitted principal use. And so we're operating in this kind of gray area.
For sure.
When you say permitted, permanent.
Correct. Right.
He doesn't have a permitted principal use. He has, well, I guess food beverage is in a temporary type of structure. I guess to be consistent, we have said you can't just have a pile of connexes out there, and it started out with one, and now there's several. Where we sort of came down and where the assembly placed it, if we get back to what the assembly placed a condition of approval on his alcohol conditional use permit, which is to say remove all connexes that are not mobile food units. So if he gets them licensed as mobile food units, I don't know if we would get into moving the goalposts and saying, well, now that they're licensed as mobile food units, even though they're used as storing your ketchup and chairs or whatever, you can't have those either. I don't know. It's definitely a weird workaround that he's going for, but I don't think that we've said you can't do that to date.
Okay, well, when we do 16, it may bring up some issues because your storage may have to have a wash basin and
Oh, Lord.
Oh, it does.
Okay, well, we're good. Okay, so now we're in a hurry. Do we have time to look at the Title 16? Start soon?
I have time until the top of the hour. I just have an editorial comment to make that this is why the planning department is driven crazy, right? Because trying to figure out a way to make it work, and then they say they don't want to move the goalpost, and then you move the goalpost, and then they move the goalpost, and so just put that on the table. I get it, to all parties, and finding a solution is good that actually meets the targets of all the parties. And I'm sure there's one in there with all the creativity that we're seeing on all sides of this question. And so I hope we can find a solution that isn't just, doing crazy yoga positions through the code.
And that's sort of what we were just back here talking about, is that we're challenged because we want to make a good code that reflects what we want to see as our community grows. And it may not be the perfect fit to make Mr. Bowen feel right, but we also recognize that we need to do something to make Mr. Bowen feel right. So we're going to be doing some crazy yoga poses.
It's everybody, right?
It is.
To kind of reiterate that a bit, though we're almost out of time, is, I hear from a lot of people, and I don't know that it's necessarily true, but this is a building of no. They come in here and the answer is no. And they're really frustrated. And so, well, to get to yes, this is what getting to yes looks like.
Yeah.
It's a hassle, but where we can, we should try. We have a business that's just created and could be hugely successful. How do we make that happen properly? And this is what it looks like, and I'm willing to take part.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. We are going to be using these type of containers, it seems like, for different uses than what we were typically expecting a few years ago. And so we're gonna have to be willing to adjust our code to keep up with the times, you know? That's just the way it is, that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so, Title 16 changes. Do you want to run through those, Steve?
A few times pretty tight. Sure. I sort of want to mention that this copy that we distributed yesterday morning, we've had some changes since then, and I just wanted to show you what they were. And there's after some discussion with Mr. Hickman from DHHS. So I was going to pull those up on PowerPoint. But the first one, so page 1, 922, movable containers such as Connex unit. Mr. Hickman points out, would allow many types of containers. You know, a shed or a metal shed from Home Depot could just sit out there, or you could, you know, lift onto a trailer. But he suggests to keep it narrow to fit the circumstances, right? So just a repurposed shipping unit. So if you could show a slide or so. I had some history to show you how things have evolved, but I'm going to skip that and just pull up the next one. I've added kiosk, because kiosk is a relevant definition to, I think, what's happening here, just to be aware of. So I haven't changed the definition so far in this draft. So that isn't in the hard copy in front of you, but it's what I've written since. And then I've changed movable to repurposed shipping container and added a definition for repurposed shipping container. So that's new. And then if you could go back to the hard copy, there are changes on page 2, right, starting at line 14. It just moves, I guess, the restrictions or requirements for a mobile food unit other than push cart. Those used to be in the definition in page 1, subsection 4, but it didn't really fit well there in the definitional type of sense. So I moved that. It's pretty much very similar language. And then the other change, line 25 on page 2, there's a reference to section C, it changed to D. Then at the bottom of line, page 2 at line 44, talks about water and wastewater utility connections and the holding tanks. And this was to say you could have one or the other, but Mr. Hickman had a point about, well, if it's a mobile food unit that actually moves, you know, you disconnect from utilities, you need to have the holding tanks then, you know, for whatever location you're moving it to, if you sell it to somebody. So we modified some language from the hard copy in front of you, so that it would say, oh, excuse me, I missed this change. That's actually up in the hard copy. That's under the 6230B. I've added a paragraph specific to the repurposed shipping container shall cut out skids or something that is basically readily movable by dragging. I guess many of them have slots for if you can pick it up, or some kind of hitch so you can pull it up to an inclined trailer. Anyways, the next slide, please. Going back to what I was saying, we've changed that bottom of page 2, leading up to the top of page 3 of Mr. Hickman's suggestion. So you have to have either water or wastewater utility connections or holding tanks. But in the holding tanks part, it wouldn't be, if it's connected to the utilities, it would disconnect. You need to reinstall the holding tanks before you move the unit, right? And then later we have that language that says you need to move the unit. It has to be capable of moving within the calendar day. So I talked about some time frames in the hard copy here. We have on page 3, the new paragraph V5, set line 16. It's basically, and that's not on PowerPoint, it's in their hard copy. Movable container changed to repurposed shipping container. The operator has to demonstrate that he can move it within a calendar day. I had tossed around the idea of some kind of time frame, you know, the idea of being mobile traditionally before these changes. It's got reuse of the chassis, you could just drive it away. And here we're pushing the mobility standards, so you have a longer time to lift up a container on something. And that's what this is intended. I suggested maybe 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, and we've ended up within the whole calendar day. It's got to be able to be moved in order to qualify as a mobile food unit if you use the container. So then the bottom of page 3, it's just similar. This is about type 23. It's just to make it consistent. I'm not sure if I have something else in. Yeah, that's just to show that change. Ryan was just mentioned at page 385, and PowerPoint. That's all the changes that want to show you that are different from the hard copy. So the Title 23 changes. B3. It's just to be consistent with the Title 16 explanation that it's got to be readily movable, and the rest of Title 23 is changed based on the dialogue we had before. We still have retrofit permit language in there because it's in Title 23, but retrofit's removed from the Title 16 language. And then the rest here, the bottom of page 4, subsection K, it's sort of reorganizing all of the requirements to comply with the fire code and put them under K, 1, 2, 3. I think that the fire marshal here asked that this be reorganized in a way so that compliance with fire plan review and the operation of fire processes required would be necessary. So when fire goes out to certify this is in compliance, they have all of this in one place, and any other processes for public safety purposes. And then on page 5, the public occupancy, nobody had any changes to that language, and so that's where we are.
Okay, good, thank you. Gordon?
Yeah, we're coming up at the end of our time here, and I have a suggestion to make it. Unless somebody here wants to make a really strong point and throw their body in front of something that's in this ordinance, I suggest that the sponsors, and I'm happy to be a co-sponsor, submit this for the agenda for the first meeting in February, which I think the deadline is tomorrow for the regular agenda.
No, it's next week.
Oh, okay, even more time then. But regardless, submit this for the first meeting in February, and let's have a work session. At some point, we're going to have to socialize our colleagues to this, and ask the chair for a work session, and then we can have a whole hour to hash this out, because this keeps getting pushed to the end of the agenda. So that's my suggestion.
I think that's a fine idea. I think a couple of things to hit quickly is make sure when Mark's here and Cleo is this word even work? Make sure before we go forward. And then we do have this a little bit of an issue that kind of came up yesterday is, do we require them to have the holding water tank and a water stored in two tanks always in there, or do we let them take them out? And the issue there is, well, they take them out, it could be years that they're gone, and then he sells it to someone who doesn't have a clue that they're going to need them. Now, if you require that they always be there, that gets around that, but then you have space issues. So that's just an odd sticking point.
Well,
it'd be nice to hash out prior to putting
Mr. Littleton, I think though what I just heard tonight or today this morning is that there are 3 new mobile food units that are all going to have plumbed water in them, right? And so it appears, at least from the people we're dealing with now, that that's not a concern, right? And then that leads me to contemplate that the health department's perspective on future sales is something we really need to weigh in there, because you're right, if it gets taken out today and then sold tomorrow, then the next day the person who bought it gets screwed. And by our own kind of effort to try to be helpful, right? And so I think that the health department's perspective is wise to hew to at this time.
So the point is, you would say leave the requirement that they have the tanks in there at all times.
The public, when they put in a mobile unit, is expecting that anyway. They're expecting to have a unit with tanks. And I kind of look at it as, this is the minimum requirements to have a mobile unit, but we do have the added benefit that it's now okay to connect to sewer and water. But the other system still has to be there. So
And I just think we heard that it's not such a burden that they could have put them into 4 ones that are just gonna sit there, that, it seems reasonable.
Right, okay, so just, yeah, right there. So the current word, the wording that Dean showed us said that you could take them out as long as you put them back.
Because I
in.
asked for it.
Right, and now we're kind of moving
Sorry.
back, well, no, leave them in there, you always have to have those, even if you're cooked up to water, so.
Just like an RV, you know, RVs have both systems. You can connect to the RV park water and not use your tanks.
Yeah.
Or you can use your tanks if the water gets shut off, or there's a water main break and you have no water, then you've got your tanks you can fall back on. It's just a quick flush and sanitize and you're back in business.
I think that's a great change to the draft when you guys submit it, but my point is, if you submit for the regular agenda, first weekend, for the first meeting in February, it won't be actually, we won't have public testimony and pass it till the end of February, so we have quite a lot of time to do a work session and both acclimate our colleagues and spin them up and work through these kind of details with an hour-long work session, hopefully.
Okay, I'm there, but I want to ask another question. So, is the phrasing here on connecting the water and sewer, does that work for you?
Specifically, item D on page 4 of 5, we have no objections to it. There's a sentence at the end there that doesn't really do anything for anybody. The water supply shall be isolated by a reduced pressure backflow assembly. You could leave that in, you can take it out, because it's really part of utility service providers' compliance requirements. You look up, you're going to
Is it
comply with
helpful?
utility provider requirements, whatever they may be.
So that's going to be, you have a list of requirements, and that's one of them.
So,
Yeah, it's a hookup like any other.
So why list that one requirement?
Why
when
list
you're leaving
that?
out the others?
Because that's a case-by-case basis.
Good.
Okay, so I'd say scratch
Make
that.
it less restrictive.
Well, I thought we discussed that, decided to keep it in there so that the person who was gonna do these mobile food units would see the majority of the requirements in one spot, like when they look at Title 23, they would realize, oh, I gotta have a backflow preventer when I connect to the water supply.
Well, I think what we're hearing though, there's a list of requirements, and are we gonna put all, it's almost like put all or none, and they, I mean, to do this, they have to go see.
They have to come into us, they have to give us drawings, they have to, do applications, they have to become a customer. They have our DCPM engineering requirements to follow. There is a list. I mean,
And does that list include a backflow preventer?
it depends on the case.
So it's a case by case.
And you think it should always be in there?
I'll let Ross answer that. He's over
At a
mechanics.
certain point, this becomes a building safety issue that goes into it outside of our court.
Yeah, it does, it falls under the purview of the plumbing code. And so, yeah, we wanted to get that out there. Because the way mobile food units work under the building codes is it says you are exempt from getting a building permit if you're a mobile food unit and you meet all these requirements.
Okay, so this would be, so this is over and above what they might want, we want it in there.
Potentially. I mean, it's probably pretty much in harmony with what they want, but we explicitly spell it out.
Okay, so leave it in.
And then regarding the language, we would like to tweak the language on 3 items in here regarding the Title 23 requirements. They don't materially change anything, but they're going to be, it'll be more technically correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would like to send that to Dean, I guess.
Okay, we'll do that before we have to submit it for the
Yeah, we'll do that today.
Okay, that'd be good. Michelle?
I just wanted to say that we have a meeting scheduled for here at 11 o'clock. Long time.
Okay, so the plan for this then is Ross will get with Dean and make this more technically correct. We will leave the requirement that the water tanks will always be in these units, even if they're connected up to public utilities. And we will take what we have with those changes and move it for the agenda to be introduced 2 meetings, 2 Tuesdays from now. And we'll have a work session after introduction. Hash out anything else, is that right?
And then we're going to make sure that we limit the type of non-chassis buildings to the Connex, or the repurposed shipping containers, so that you can't use storage sheds or whatever we cobble together in our backyard and slap it down in the ground.
Okay, and I think he had wording that dealt with
Yeah,
that.
this language I added, it's not your hard copy. It's intended to say only a repurposed shipping container
Yeah.
that lacks a chassis. It must have these other things and
Okay.
then drive.
All right,
So
perfect.
that, we can look at that more.
And is it possible, while we're messing with this part of the code, we
Yeah,
do have a number of
Still a draft.
ancient units that are trailers but don't have wheels and they have skids and stuff. Can we grandfather the existing trailers without wheels? Because that solves another problem that we're.
I think that's outside. I mean, that happens.
Is that, it's kind of in the same thing, I mean.
If they were legally established and
Before
before
times.
the ordinance, and the ordinance would prohibit that type of structure, then they would be legally.
I have a feeling that the ordinance was in place, but neither us or the building department was enforcing it. So, and now we are for about the last
And they
8 or
were
9 years, and so then we've got a problem. We've grandfathered the width problem, but not the ones that don't have chassis or have wheels. So, either grandfather or make those type of things legal, along with the, I still don't want to make sure we don't end up with a storage shed from Home Depot slapped in a parking lot, but if it's like a trailer on skids, it would be nice if those were actually allowed too, then it would solve a different problem we have that's related.
That's in there.
Absolutely.
Right there.
And that's where I changed movable container to repurposed shipping container. It's not any other type of
Right.
structure.
That was put in
Well, and if they were too large for some reason, I think that would be, they're already there. There's no way we're coming in and forcing them off the land. Huh?
We grandfathered over which ones, that's a whole different issue.
Okay, well, so the width one's a different issue.
Yeah, because there was a number of them that got in that were like 10, 11 feet wide, which don't meet code, but, so those are now grandfathered. No new ones are allowed, but we do have a number with wheels, because we did not grandfather ones without wheels or chassis. So there are some trailers that are trailers, they're not storage sheds, but they just have skids. And, we kind of just gone like this because I don't know what to do with them, so.
So this will help them out.
I'm hoping, well, that says repurposed shipping container, which would not be a trailer on skids. So I'm just saying maybe we want to add the language in there that trailers on skids are.
Question, then, are they still licensed as by the state of Alaska as a trailer?
They probably are not. I imagine that we haven't.
We have a bigger problem now because the opening
Well,
line
yeah,
said it has to
well,
be licensed by the state of Alaska.
I think they said if on there on number 2, they've changed that to if, so that's only a requirement if it's a motor vehicle.
Or a trailer.
So, with chassis and axles, so if these don't have it, then we've actually removed that requirement to be licensed by that wording. So, which is what worried me about having Home Depot storage sheds, or whatever you build in your backyard show up. Because people will do that because they're way cheaper than Connexes.
It's now.
Okay,
time
we
to
got
go
another
around.
meeting coming.
Yeah,
Okay, anyways,
more
thanks.
Yeah, well, yeah.